Please stay tuned after the conclusion of this episode, where we have an additional conversation where our wives talk about worry and anxiety, peace, and the overall weight that people and families are carrying today. I think their insight brought a completely different depth to this conversation, and we're excited to share it with you. As usual, I'm here
with your two best buddies.
with my two best buddies in the world.
Who's your favorite?
So we've had several episodes talking about a lot of different things, from the fruits and what we produce in our lives. This episode, we're going to focus on how worry and anxiety can weigh you down. And sometimes the greatest threat to our growth isn't a failure. It's not distraction. It's not even lack of opportunity. It's carrying mental and emotional burdens for far too long. I know individuals who I think are incredibly talented, very sharp individuals, and they don't accomplish things in life because they're worried. They're afraid to take chances and things like that. So this episode, I wanted to focus on anxiety, on overthinking, on fear, on pressure, responsibility, lots of different things here. So just kind of, for me personally, I personally struggle with anxiety and worry. I can close, a deal, or something positive can happen, and I will let that ride for about 10 minutes. And then I will move into something's going to happen. How's this going to fall apart? Just, a lot of these different things. And I think a lot of people, you guys as well, are carrying a lot of heavy branches mentally. Career, money, family, expectations, fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of disappointing people. And what's scary about anxiety is it can become so normal that we forget what peace even feels like. That's how it is for me, because sometimes I will go to 3 weeks where I will wake up at 2:00 and just be up for the day because I can't get rid of that feeling and that thought. So a healthy tree, if you think about it from what we talk about here, was never designed to carry dead weight forever. So what I kind of wanted to know is, for you guys, what is anxiety? What do these things kind of feel like in real life?
It's a real problem. I mean, as you're sitting there talking, I mean, I don't think a lot of people, we were kind of talking before we started recording, but I think for the majority of my life, trying to overcome just worry and anxiety and fear about the future is probably the biggest thing I've had to continually try to overcome in my life. So it's a very real thing to me, and I think in our world it's a very real thing for probably most people out there.
Yeah, I think it's such an important thing to talk about, especially as men, right? Because I think there's a lot of people that deal with it, but I don't think there's a lot of people who allow themselves to get vulnerable enough to actually talk about it. Mm-hmm. As in a social group, I think men have kind of got this, this societal facade built up where they have to kind of remain strong on the outside, but sometimes inside, things are crumbling down. And I think, I struggle with anxiety, and it shows up in different ways for different reasons. And I think more and more people, I never had it growing up. And that was the weird thing for me. I never experienced anxiety growing up as even into my 30s. It's only, the last decade or so, which is so stupid.
Yeah.
I think it's stupid, but for me personally, because it's some of the things that I think about and worry about are exactly that. They're just thoughts, right? And I think that's also the thing that I struggle with is, a lot of the things that you were chatting about it earlier, right? A lot of the things that we think about, which is ultimately the root of anxiety and worry. It's just what's happening between our ears, right? Oftentimes never come to pass, right? I have this tendency sometimes where, and you were joking about it earlier, right? Where you can take a scenario and run it down to its absolute worst case scenario and then create that as reality.
Yes.
And I mean, I'll do the same thing, right? Like, oh, something happened here. Now, next thing you know, there's a for sale sign outside your house, right? Because, you know, you're going to lose your job or whatever. And I think, look, I will say, I think there's a very, very healthy part of worry. I think there's a healthy part of, you know, being concerned. There's a healthy part about thinking about what are the potential scenarios and, you know, what could potentially be an outcome to a particular, you know, again, scenario. But I think where it converts into being unhealthy is when now you start living those worst case scenarios. And I think what's very healthy is just talking about it, right? And I think making it real for everyone, because it is real.
Yeah, absolutely. I never remember the quote exactly right, but Mark Twain, and I have it written down, and I keep it on. I did keep it on a wall, but I don't know what I did with it now. But it said the biggest struggles I've had in life, I never really came to pass, or something like that. It's basically like saying these are all the things that are the hardest things I've ever faced were things that I never even had to face anyways. Because I don't know what the statistic is. I think it's something like 93% of the things we worry about never even come to pass. And that's what I always try to tell Victoria is I'm like, well, I'm planning. And she's like, you're not planning though. You're just basically building up all the worst case scenarios so that you can try to figure out all the angles that you could solve. And she's like, it's endless. I mean, like, who can even, like, what's the point? Like, who can even plan for all of those things? You can be strategic. You can be conscious and conscientious of the things that you need to be making sure, hey, I need to make sure I have enough money to pay my bills. I need to plan for this trip, you know, like things like that. But trying to figure out, man, if I lose this deal or if this goes bad or, you know, if I get cancer or whatever, you'll spend your whole life just going crazy. I believe it.
But that's where the healthy amount of worry and concern is actually useful, right?
Yes.
Because the whole cancer thing, right? We should all have that inherently in us to say, okay, well, I should want to be working out and eating healthy and avoiding certain things. And so there is that healthy amount that it doesn't, you know, obsess.
Yes.
You know,
I think that's the best. Obsess.
Obsession of potential outcomes. But again, that healthy amount of, I mean, there's even the whole concept of the fear of God, right? That's a healthy thing to have that, because having that as a foundation for everything, we know, okay, well, if I do things well, then this is going to be an outcome. But if I do things wrong, then this is going to be an outcome.
Right.
So having that as a basis, you know, in our mental state is good. But again, and I do the same thing, right? Just running down that rabbit hole of, you know, oh, this has happened, and now next thing you know, you've run up that ladder of inference to, you know, again, letting it, you know, really just take over my mind.
Yeah. Well, you said something earlier. Several years ago, you didn't have anxiety.
Yeah.
10 years ago. So why do you think people overthink so much today? Like, what do you guys think has changed? I mean, I have ideas on things, but
isn't it the more you have to lose, the more you worry about it, right?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, we've all, you know, met the person that, you know, I remember we went to Hawaii last year, and, you know, you meet the people who are they surf, you know, for half the day, and then they, you know, they work somewhere for half a day, and then you talk to them like, oh, we had just, you know, 15 years ago, I just came over and decided I'm not going to go home. You know, I'm going to leave all that behind. And that just blows my mind, because I'm like, I could never, ever just be like, yeah, it'll be all right. Like, I have to have things planned out. Like, what's the plan? You know, how do we execute this? But yeah, I was thinking, to me, it'd be like the more I've been successful, I feel like the more I have to lose, and that ramps up the worry. Yes. Because it's like, okay, well, when's the other shoe going to drop, right? This can't keep going this well. There has to be something bad's around the corner, and when's it going to happen?
Yeah. And that's something really critical for us to think about, because like I always encourage myself and others to set stretch goals. Like, I was here 5 years ago. Now I'm here and here. But as you just made a point of, as you gain more, you have in your mind more to lose. But then I'm like, well, I mean, do I? Because at the end of the day, the worst thing that could happen to me is losing my wife or kids. I mean, losing a house, losing a job, all those things. You'll figure it out. You really will.
Then you start worrying about that.
Yeah.
And that becomes the thing that you can go down.
Yes.
But I agree with you, Matthew. I think the more you have, the more you stand to potentially lose. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, here's a question: is this becoming more prevalent? I mean, even in younger people these days. Is this something that our society, our modern society, has got a bigger proclivity towards than maybe previously? I don't know. I don't have the statistics or the data to comment either way, but
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you hear a lot more about mental health, even at a much younger age these
Yeah.
days.
Well, and it's the thing that humans do. So it used to be you don't talk about anything. Men just keep it all bottled up and all of that.
Yeah.
Then you kind of move through the decades, and it's like, well, let's talk about things. And people can have their own opinions. 100% think it's fine. I'm not a huge psychologist type person. I like to read books about things that I know I need to work on. But for me, I've talked to psychologists before, and they're always like, oh, it's going to be hard. We're going to peel back the layers of this onion and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're just asking me all the stupidest questions ever. I grew up in a hard home, or, whatever.
Yeah.
I need you to tell me what's wrong with me and what do I need to do to fix it. Just tell me.
Just tell me what to do.
Yeah, just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
But I think today's society, I mean, with all the social media and the media, the news, they play on fear. And so then there are all these things. Is there going to be a nuclear strike? Is there going to be another pandemic? All these different things. And of course, Satan loves that because it creates chaos and it creates division and all of these different things. And we see that happening, and then we wonder, well, why am I so anxious? Well, I don't know. Go turn the news on for 5 minutes and you'll see why we are so much more anxious. And then we have so much more, I feel.
I think you just said a key word that just kind of popped out to me, and that was fear. So, because whether you want to call it worry, because I don't feel like I'm anxious in that definition, but man, I worry a lot. Mm-hmm. But whether it's anxiety, whether it's worry, in the root of both of those, fear, right?
Yes.
It's the fear of, and then the fill in the blank. Okay, maybe the fear of I don't have as many followers as I want, or I don't have as good of a lifestyle as what I see on Instagram, or my work's not going well, whatever it is, whether it's worry, anxiety, call it whatever, but the root of that is fear.
Yeah.
Fear of the unknown, fear of what could happen.
I put down here, why do people avoid opportunities? Because of fear, which, I mean, I know, I think I know why, because a lot of people don't want to fail. And I've never been, I'm afraid of failing, but I figure, and I was thinking about it yesterday. I was walking around getting ready for church, and I was like, if you try and you fail, that's one thing. If you don't try, you guarantee failure.
Well, it depends on the definition of failure. And I'll just speak for myself, right? Something that I've struggled with and had to overcome, early career was, and even today, I'm not the person in a company-wide town hall when they ask for questions that's easily, moved to put his hand up to ask a question, right? Because for me, it's like, I'd rather just sit here and say nothing than put my hand up and say something and look like an idiot. And so I think, there is also I agree with you, right? That, failing can be, chalked down to, not attempting, thus you don't, achieve something.
Yes.
But for myself, failure could also mean looking like an absolute idiot, right? And so the safer thing to do is to do nothing, which is not a good thing. It's not a good position. I mean, there's all sorts of, proverbial wisdom that speaks about, taking action, being courageous, and so that's for me failure is, there's certain things that cannot be undone in a social setting.
Sure.
Right. And we've all seen it happen, right?
Yeah.
We've seen people kind of just self-destruct in a social setting.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, I will never put myself in that situation. And so for me, that's maybe a healthy kind of fear of failure. But I guess my point in all of this is failure can also be just not putting yourself through that situation in the first place.
Well, the thing that I have really tried to adopt is you are not a failure until you quit trying. And even in a particular situation, I guarantee you, jobs I've had, social situations I've been in, I've said things where people are like,
we all have, yeah.
That guy is an idiot.
Nonstop.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, like, that's the difference between like Victoria and I is she's so well-rounded in like culture and reading books and things. There's things I don't even get the concepts because I never read the book or I never did anything. You get me in the areas that I believe in and I'm strong. So the Bible or like self-growth or personal growth and or sports. Yeah, I'll talk all day long and I will push and things like that. But other situations, I would subscribe to your idea there that I'm not going to say anything because they'd be like, yeah, this guy's an idiot. He really is.
Yeah, but yeah, it's something that I think, just looking at my own life is, I think as men and I think as aspiring men in careers or social settings, that's an important thing to overcome. Is I once had a mentor who would tell me, just be courageous. Just take the step. Think through if you have a question in a social setting or if you have a comment, think through it and then be courageous and push yourself. Because then that confidence will grow. And that's ultimately the way to overcome that fear, right? Is to face it head on. And, oftentimes, I don't know if this has happened to you. I'm sure it has because you guys are smart guys. Is you're sitting in a room and you're like, man, a room full of people, important people. And you're like, man, I have this question. Like, this is a question that I have, but I think it's a stupid question. So I'm not going to ask it. And then 5 minutes later, someone asks the question, and the room's like, "Man, that's an amazing question."
Yes.
And I'm like, well,
You're like, hey, that was my question.
And that's when you're like, I was going to ask that.
Right, but like you see, like that's an example of like I think the best way to overcome those kinds of worries and fears and concerns is you've got to push. You've got to be comfortable pushing yourself a little bit as well. And so it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? Is the only way you're going to know if what you have is of value to the room is to put it out there.
Yeah.
And to see how people respond. And the more you do that, I think the more you'll start seeing, gaining your own confidence in that one particular situation. That's just one. I mean, obviously, worry, fear, anxiety applies to various. But I think the principle is always the same as it comes to anxiety, is face it. Because once you face it, oftentimes, and I think this is the quote of Mark Twain, right, is if you face it, you oftentimes realize it was not as bad as what you fabricated in your mind.
Right.
And it's hard to do, but I think an important step is, what's the old saying? Can't go around it, can't go over it, you've got to go through it.
Yeah.
And going through it from an anxiety standpoint is the hardest, but the most effective way to overcome something like that.
Well, and it's not that I just love the movie First Night. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that.
Is that the one with
Sean Connery and
the guy with the hair? He died, right? He played the Joker.
Oh no.
Which one was that?
First, that was A Knight's Tale.
A Knight's Tale. Okay.
First Night is with Sean Connery is King Arthur. And then there's Guinevere. I can't remember who plays her. And then it's Richard Gere as Lancelot.
Okay.
And Lancelot is just like this. He has no fear. He has no cares in the world. He has no home. He just travels and fights and does his thing. Well, he's like doing a sword demo, and he beats this guy, and he just like takes the sword from the guy. And the guy's like, how did you do that? And he's like, no, seriously, how did you do that? And he goes, well, and he gives him like basically 3 principles. And the first one is like, you have to study your enemy. And he's like, I can do that. And then he's like, and then you have to do something else. I don't remember exactly what he said. And he goes, I could do that. And then he goes, and you have to not care whether you live or die. And the guy's like, I can't do that. And I'm not saying you have to not care whether you live or die, but if you think about it, like we have nice homes, we have nice cars, we have good jobs, we have all of these things that at the end of the day, they're just things. And, you know, like people lose their homes all the time and just from a catastrophe or things like that. But we get so attached to what we have that personally for me, that's what drives a lot of my fear and anxiety is losing what I have. And then what takes it to a whole other level is somebody thinking I'm a failure because I lost what I had.
Right.
And those are some of the things that really, really, really drive me. And I can be like, man, I'll shut down and everything. And then I just tell myself, dude, you got this and you got to do this. You got to move through. You got to go through it. And I'll use this saying, I'm going to go through the wall. I'm going to go around the wall, or I'm going to go over the wall. But either way, I'm going to get this done. And this is, you know, it's going to happen. Because I have a quote here, constant fear doesn't sharpen you. Eventually, it drains you. And that's what happens to me. I just get so drained. So when does anxiety or worry hit you guys hardest, you think?
Man, I think in my life it's usually after, you know, something hasn't went my way, right? And a lot of my anxiety and worry is just around my job, right? Mm-hmm. Then we talked about what we do. I mean, I'm in sales. So, you know, just by definition, you know, I'm going to get a lot more no's than I'm going to get yeses. But I also work for, you know, a company that is very, you know, they have high standards and high performance, and they do a really great job of hiring people and reinforcing in people that like your value is, you know, being successful and, you know, hitting your numbers. And it's hard not to sometimes, you know, buy into that a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think in my life, a lot of that comes down to just to what you said. You want to, I think we all have a desire to be successful, but we also, even if it's not exactly right, we shouldn't, but we do. We want other people to view us as successful as well. Mm-hmm. And you know, when you said that the point about like, yeah, if you lose it all, then that people are like, well, he's just a bum.
Yeah.
And so, you know, a lot of it is like, well, no, I want people to view me as, all right, he's a successful guy. You know, he's good at what he does. Which then goes back to, okay, well, we have to get our priorities in check as to what really is important, like you said. Mm-hmm. But no, I think, a lot of mine, I think Betsy would agree, stems from like my professional life.
Yeah.
And then secondary would be you know, family and health stuff, and just, you know, when your mind kind of starts spiraling about, because I've always been that way. I've always felt like things are too good right now.
Yeah.
Like this.
Something's got to go back.
Yeah. Like we were joking about Job before, but like for real, like it's like, you know, if it could happen to Job, it could happen to me.
Yeah.
And so just when is that going to happen?
But, you know, and that is something that Victoria and I talk a lot about, is a lot of times I think if you have a good relationship with God and you're in a good place, you won't often realize the bad things that are happening in your life. Because I can tell you, we've all been through stuff. I mean, you've lost your dad, you have health struggles with your daughter, you know, just different things. I don't know you from that level personally, but for us, I mean, Victoria and I have both lost our parents. I've lost jobs before, but it always seems like God works things out for you. And I was thinking too yesterday, you know, when we were at Pentecost, and there was the story about Peter, and, you know, Christ said he was going to deny him 3 times before the rooster crows or whatever. And I thought about that, and I thought, what's the point? Like, why did Christ not necessarily harden his heart But why did he need that to happen? And as you can see, if you read before and after, it was like Peter was a little bit, not arrogant, but maybe he was a little bit, where he was like, I would never do that. Like, I'm so into you. Like, I'm so much following you. And Christ was like, you are going to learn a hard lesson. And I think that's where, if we are smart and if we learn from things, when something bad happens, you have to take account for it. You have to assess it and look back. Okay, what was I supposed to learn from this? Because I think those are the things that God wants of us, is to actually learn from the struggles, not just say, yeah, I give up, I'm a failure.
That's such a great, analogy, metaphor, because the one with Peter, right? Because if you look at Peter in his subsequent, preaching, teaching, writing, maybe one of the boldest preachers we had, other than maybe Paul, right? I mean, he was so bold. I mean, you look at what he did, immediately after that, right? I mean, he was a guy that all of a sudden was not afraid of being, imprisoned, or, I mean, the rumor is he was, crucified upside down even. I mean, so, but the question then becomes, do you think that boldness would have manifested had he not gone through that early on?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And I think that's what you're saying, right? Is I think what ultimately became Peter, or the Peter that we now know, he had to go through that to look back and learn, okay, well, that's my blind spot, and that's not going to happen again. Right? And so how else do you learn that?
Yeah.
Other than face it head on, go through it, let it turn you upside down, inside out, and you come out the other end a completely different person.
Yep. Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah.
And I think there's things that we face sometimes where we look in the mirror, or we just sit and ponder, and we're like, I don't understand. Why am I going through this? Why did this happen? Like, even families you see that lose a child that's 3 years old, and I don't know what I would do. Like, I don't know how I would handle that. But I think there's certain things that God will test you with, that he'll allow you to happen in your life. And we can either grow from it and let it shape us, or let it completely tear us down. So when do you think concern for, because we're all talking about, we have concerns about this happening or that, where concern turns into unhealthy fear or worry?
I think when you start manufacturing reality in your mind, and then start living that reality out artificially.
Yeah.
I think that, and I'll just speak for myself, that's where it now transcends from a concern to taking action, right? I think we spoke last time about the ladder of inference. Did we speak about that here? Where I went through some training, and they spoke about there's this thing in psychology called the ladder of inference, right? Where we as humans, we infer, someone will say something, and then we infer, and then that inference kind of leads to a thought, that thought leads to, potential action, which ultimately leads to some result. And that was all based on an inference. It was all based on something that we made up, and then we took ourselves on this journey, and we end up making decisions. I think that's where it becomes unhealthy. Yeah. I think it's important to acknowledge, okay, what is this person saying, or what is the situation, what is actually going on in the situation, okay, what are potential outcomes, what do I potentially need to plan for, and then it stops there, right? Versus, again, just climbing through that and letting it just, live, unchecked in your brain.
Yep.
For me, that's the problem I have, is catching myself, because it happens quick. Can happen quick.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Like you were talking about earlier, right? You have one conversation with someone about a deal, they mention one phrase, and in your mind you've gone to, might as well sell that.
We're done.
I think that for me,
shut it down.
For me, that's where it becomes unhealthy.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes for me, I will have sleeplessness, racing thoughts. I have tension. I'll feel just this performance pressure, like I've got to figure this out. I have personally gotten better by just taking a step back and realizing, all right, like, I think the biggest thing you can do in life is know yourself. and know when I'm doing certain things and how to counter those. Because like a lot of people, even myself, it would be, well, I'm stressing out. I'm just going to go drink a little bit, have one or two, 3, 5, whatever. And I'm not saying that jokingly. I'm saying that something to just get me and my mind off of things. And that's a horrible path. Instead, taking a step back, realizing, okay, here's the worst outcome that could happen, and then just work your way back from it and be like, well, okay, I'm not gonna sit here and manifest this and have that become my reality, because then I think what you do is you operate in a way to not lose something, and people notice that. So instead of being emotional about these things, you can just be strategic and kind of relax and say, I think things are going to be okay. And even if I don't have this outcome, I don't get this job that I applied for or whatever, something else is going to come.
What's worse? Because this can exist on two extremes, right? Mm-hmm. This could be the over warrior or the I don't care about anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you spoke about the guys in Hawaii.
Yeah.
I have a friend who had a great job here in Dallas, and I played golf with him every weekend, and he was doing great. Has a young child here in Dallas, wasn't married, but just one random day, went and I played golf with him on a Sunday. He goes, oh, I'm moving to Hawaii. And I'm like, what are you going to do? He goes, I'm going to work on a pineapple farm. I'm like, why are you going to work on a pineapple farm? He goes like, well, just so I can surf and, just enjoy my life.
Wow.
Yeah. And part of me was like, man, I wish I could do that. there was a small part of me. But like this does exist on a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Where you can be so nonchalant about life, and those people are not great to be around either.
Yeah.
Right, and neither are the obsessive warrior types. And so, I think it has to be a balance, right? To your point, Chris, I think getting to a point where you are concerned about certain things, where you do have empathy and compassion, not just for other people but for yourself, and having that balance is important.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, in business, for instance, you can't have, like we watched Mad Men, the series, and they had Lucky Strike. That was their big brand. If they lost that, they were like, man, we're probably, we're going to go under. That's one of the things that I've tried to operate under is you can't have one just big client. You need to diversify. You need to have options in other areas. And I think my brother and I always used to laugh because my dad all the time was like, got to use moderation in all things. And we're like, you're such a doofus. And he wasn't, because it was a really, I mean, it's balance, and you really do. I think we thought that because we didn't see my dad always be moderate in how he handled things with us and stuff. But it really is true. You have to plan. You have to think about some of the things that could happen. What are your strategies if they did? But then you don't live in that world where it's, this is the worst thing, and then it's going to grow and manifest itself, and it's going to be all these awful things. And I think that kind of goes. There's nothing wrong if that's what your friend wanted, and hey, I want to go do this and relax. It's if he encourages you to do things that you're like, well, no, this is taking me away from like the goals that I've set for myself. No, man, it's okay. Just relax. Let's go get another beer. That's the kind of people you're like, maybe I separate myself.
Yeah, just floating through life, right? I mean,
yes.
and I think all three of us sitting at this table here probably have a lot in common in that we probably think more about the future than we do about the now.
Yes.
Right. And that's always been a big thing for me. And so, speaking on my friend over here, that's the thing I could never understand. It's like, okay, well, that'll be fun for 6 months, but then what?
Yeah.
Right. You've got to do something after that. And so you've wasted all this time. Right. And so I think there's a certain element to being someone who likes to look into the future and continue to push forward that I think, ties into worry and anxiety, right? Because if you're always looking in the past, it might be a little easier. If you're only just looking in the present, certainly it's easier.
Yeah.
But I think one of the fundamental, concepts of worry or anxiety is looking into the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I have to remember is fearing the future causes me to not appreciate the blessings I have currently.
100%.
And if that's the case, then it's like, I mean, I don't think God operates this way, but it'd be like, well, why am I going to continue to give you blessings if all you're going to do is worry about the future and what's going to happen and things like that? So,
Well, I mean, that's the parable of the talents. You think about, right? When Jesus said, I mean, the one person who he wasn't happy with was the person because of worry, just buried it in the ground.
Yeah.
Right? Because he
Yeah.
was scared and he was anxious about, well, if I go and invest it, I'm going to lose it, or Jesus, like, you could at least put it in the bank. You
Yeah.
got some interest.
yeah,
And so that was, that's the one person because of worry just didn't do anything.
yeah,
So, and I think that's what we're saying is like, you can't let fear just paralyze you in life.
exactly.
Like you have to move through it. I mean, to the example of Peter, I mean, Peter could have denied him and left that courtyard and we could never have heard from him again. And he'd just go off to Hawaii and I'm just going to surf. But no, he comes back and was like, I'm not going to let that define me.
Yeah.
I know I made a mistake, right? And let me be better at this.
Yep. Absolutely. So were you going to say
I
something?
was going to say one other thing about past, present, future is the only thing that we actually have is this moment now.
Yeah.
The past is the past. It's a memory. The future has not happened. But the only thing that we have is this right now. And so to your point, right? I mean, it's important to look into the future, plan for the future, but also really take notice of what is actually happening now and enjoying the now. And the more you plan for the future and set yourself up for success in the future, the more positive now moments you'll have. But I think that's in terms of anxiety and worry and things of that nature, that's that whole concept of mindfulness, right? Is what exactly being mindful of this moment right now and being grateful for this moment. And, I've had to learn that. I think I mentioned a couple episodes ago, I've struggled with insomnia for a couple of years. And the one thing that, and that's, it's disabling. It's, you can have days where you're just dragging through the day. And the one thing that, I went to sleep coaches and all sorts of weird people. But the one thing that came up, consistently was, because really what insomnia is worrying about tomorrow. It's worrying that if I don't sleep well today, I'll have a bad day tomorrow. And you asked the question earlier, what's the source of anxiety? For me, it's performance anxiety. Like I always want to do the best that I possibly can in everything. And if I'm not feeling like, 100%, then my performance is going to lack. And then, of course, if that happens, well, then, maybe something else that's going to, evolve into something else where I'm going to lose my job or whatever it is. And so the one thing that they teach you in all these programs through mindfulness is, yes, you can think about it and you can think about, well, what is the worst possible outcome? Okay, acknowledge it, put it away, but then focus on what is happening right now.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing we can control is the now.
Yeah.
Can't control the future because it's gone, and the past because it's gone. Can't control the future because it hasn't happened. So what exactly can you control? It's this moment.
Yeah.
So focus on the moment. And that's been helpful to me in all sorts of things from an anxiety standpoint.
Well, I don't remember if it was Dale Carnegie. He wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
And he also had another book about like worry and how to overcome it. And he talked about living in day-type compartments, basically compartmentalizing things so that you keep them not buried down,
But isolated.
but isolated, and just say, okay, yep, that's a possibility, but I'm not gonna just focus on it and stew on it. I'm gonna let it go. So why do you think we as humans, we crave certainty?
Because it's easy.
Yeah.
Because it's, I don't know. That's a deep question.
It's like if you know the answers to the test, right?
Yeah.
Before the test's even given, like, I've got this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, just thinking about it.
Do you think, I was reading the book of Hebrews this morning and it talks about how Christ was tested in all things, right? But overcame. But the one thing he was not tested in was an uncertain future.
I mean, we say that, but wasn't he?
Well, it's a question more than a comment, right?
Yeah.
He knew from the foundation of the world, how things were gonna. Now he had to be tested and overcome temptation and things of
Yes.
that nature. But do you think uncertainty is a uniquely human thing?
Well, what makes me think right now about that whole kind of situation and what Christ went through and everything is we think he knew it with certainty. This is how it's all going to play out. I think he knew the events. Like we know we're going to finish doing the podcast. We're going to go eat. We've got these things, but we don't know what all the moments are going to feel like when we're down there doing those things. Whatever. So
go ahead.
Well, what I was thinking about is in the moment when he basically bore all of the world's sin and he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? I think at that moment, I wonder if he had never felt anything like that. He was so
guaranteed.
alone.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the certainty where he was like, man, because if he could just go through and it was 100% certain that he wouldn't fail and, everything would just be like, I don't think it would have meant as much. I just don't. So I think there were things that 100% he knew it's going to be like this, but I don't think in those moments he knew what it was going to feel like. And I think when he cried out, why have you forsaken me? I think in that moment he was like, man, this is awful. I mean, I don't know what you guys think.
Well, I think because you said, why is it like the lack of uncertainty? I think it boils down to something deeper. It's right, and you guys may agree, right? But in my life, my worry, my anxiety, it comes with, it's because I'm lacking faith in that moment in God's plan for me, right? Because if I had full faith in that moment, God's plan, he'll figure this out, it'll be just fine, then I wouldn't have worry. But when those two things collide and my faith isn't where it should be, that's when I worry. I mean, that's the history of my life, right? Like you had mentioned, Christopher, I don't Betsy, I guess, would be the person to give a thumbs up or thumbs down on this one, but I think I am better in these last few years with this since the bad car wreck I was in, because like without a shadow of a doubt, I know God saved me that day. I just know, and there were medical people and the helicopter pilots and people who would back that up. But that has given me like a clarity that I hope I will never lose, in that no matter what, I know, okay, God is there. And I don't need to spend as much time worrying about these trivial things when that could all just disappear in a second. And so what does it matter anyway?
Yeah.
Now, I still worry. I mean, I don't want you thinking I don't, but I pray and think that I have more clarity now with like, okay, God has a plan and whatever he wants is good. And so this, to me, it goes back to, I think you guys would agree, right? That it's when our faith isn't as active.
Well, I think certainty could be equated with control, and fear wants control.
And I love control.
Faith requires trust. And
yes,
when I say faith requires trust, I'm taking it on multiple levels, multiple areas. It requires faith that my wife will always be faithful to me. That requires trust in her as a person.
Yeah.
Whereas control says, I'm going to control everything you do. I need to see your cell phone. All these different things that a controlling person does to their spouse. And to me, that is fear of hurt, loss, all of those kind of things. So I think when you talk about, when we say humans want certainty, I think humans want control. They want control of their life, because when there are these different things that happen, you feel out of control, and it's scary versus just having faith that things are going to work out.
Yeah.
That God's going to take care of you, that, somebody's not going to hurt you, these different things. I don't know what you guys, that's kind of.
Well, no, I just, again, go back that morning, I lost all control. Literally. Like, I was just driving down the road and suddenly I was flying through the air.
Yeah.
With no control over the car. So I agree. Yeah. I mean, I think we all want control. And when we feel like we don't have it, that's the worry. That's the anxiety. And then, like I said, I know personally, if I can then say, okay, well, no, I'm not in control, but God is. And,
Yeah.
I'd rather have that than me in control, because I'll just
Right.
mess it up. But no, I mean, control is what we all want.
Well, I spin all these ideas too. And I'm just like, go, 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 because I feel like letting go is dangerous. Like, I'm not going to think of the scenario that could possibly happen. But I'm also like, that's just arrogance. To think that I've got all the answers and that I'm going to stop everything from happening. No, I'm not. I think that's part of the reason the story of Job is there, is to see and let us see he had a wife, he had kids, he had success, he had these things. God was pleased with him. And then God wanted us to see, well, yeah, you can be doing all those things, but there were things that Job needed to learn still. I mean, he did. I mean, because ultimately God's like, did you do this? Did you do this? I mean, and he basically listed all of these things. And it's like, well, no, I guess I didn't.
Can faith and worry coexist?
I mean, I think so.
Yeah. It's kind of a balancing act, though, right?
Do you think, okay, we've spoken a lot about Christ's faith, obviously, right? The faith that he has had in God the Father. But do you think he ever worried about, through his life, going through knowing what he had to endure?
I do, when he was in the
Yeah,
sweating blood.
blood.
When
So
they were in the garden.
but it doesn't mean he didn't have faith, right?
No.
No.
I mean, I made a comment here. Faith is learning where to take anxious thoughts.
Yeah. Yes, I like that.
And it means I'm going to take these thoughts and I'm going to focus on God or, the end result. Doesn't mean I'm not going to worry about, the outcome of some situation.
Yeah.
But
Because he fully trusted God, but he was also like, hey, if we can do something different,
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Because he, in that human moment, he was like, this is not going to be fun.
Yeah.
yes. Yep.
But it didn't stop him, like to our original point, right? It didn't paralyze him. He continued to go through with it.
But I think that's an important point to unpack, right? Because it's not like we're saying that, if you worry, you don't have faith. Like, the two can coexist, right? You can go through life, worrying about certain things, but also saying, you've got this, right?
Yeah.
Worrying or faith doesn't mean completely absolving ourselves of all worry and concern. I think there has to be a blend between, okay, well, I'm going to worry about this to the extent that, hey, these are going to be events or things that I have to be, take action in, or they're going to be uncomfortable or whatever these things.
Yeah.
But then also saying, but I'm not alone, and I know that this is ultimately going to work out for the best.
I don't think Jesus was teaching that people don't worry. I think he was teaching worry is a terrible master. And if that's...
So I've never heard that said like that, but I like that.
if that's what we are constantly focused on, because obviously you can have both, and both can be there. But if
one can be the master. Worry can be a master, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, Jesus talks about worry, right? He says, "Don't worry
Do not
about
worry,
your life.
Yes.
Don't worry about it."
Yeah.
And he, but because he knew it was going to be, it existed, and to your point, maybe that's the point of like, don't let it become who controls you.
Yeah, I mean, because even having like peace and peace of mind, it doesn't mean necessarily I don't have worry. It's just knowing where to take it, and that I can have trust that it's going to work out. Mm-hmm. Things are going to be okay.
Ultimately. And isn't that such a amazing hope, though? Right? Knowing that ultimately it will work out.
Yes. I mean, because like fear, it for me, it lives in imagined futures versus, and my imagined future can be anything I want it to be.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, it really can, but like I listened to Joe Dispenza, his meditations. I don't know if he's a little bit different sometimes because he's like, hi and welcome. But I find peace in it. And he focuses on things where it isn't like the power of positive thinking or anything like that, but it's basically like focusing on the future that you want, not on the future that you think may happen. And I'll meditate for 20 or 30 minutes on things that I want to happen in life, not things that I don't want to happen. And it has been proven by doctors that people have cured things by thinking more positively about an outcome rather than worrying about. I mean, because worry, we know what it does. Like it'll destroy you inside and out.
What is that? What is that proverb? Cheerful heart does good like medicine.
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
worry is rottenness to your bones. Is that?
No.
Is that the proverb?
It's something like that. Yeah. I have a key idea here that I wrote down. Fear often disguises itself as wisdom or protection, but many times fear becomes the very thing preventing growth. And I think that's one of the areas we've really got to focus on is a lot of times fear can be fear of revealing who you are to yourself and knowing what you need to change and what you got to do different. And I think that's a lot of times what God is trying to get us to understand is these are the things. That's what he was doing with Peter. This is what I need you to change. How are you going to handle that?
That's the longest pause we've ever had on the show.
I know.
It's a good thing to have a pause every now and again.
You know what I heard once while you're getting your thoughts in order here is 6 seconds is the amount of time that you should try and pause in a conversation.
It makes it really uncomfortable.
Because most people cannot handle 6 seconds of silence. They will say something. And I have a problem where I do not like the silence. I'll just fill it with garbage most of the time. But I've tried to be much more intentional in working with people and, conversations just to try and hold that 6 seconds.
So I took a course and it was basically just, different listening, right? As a sales, we like to talk a lot, but the key is you got to listen first to know what their real problem is. And that he said it was 10 seconds. He goes, if you can be comfortable with 10 seconds.
Yeah, even better.
Because that's how much time it takes the human mind to process a question, to process your thought, and then to possibly answer it. But that people are not comfortable with, like you said, they aren't comfortable with silence. And so the mistake you make is you ask the question, 2 seconds go by, and then you also give the answer.
Yeah.
And so that person has not had a chance, and they're not uncomfortable. Their mind's working. You're the one uncomfortable because it's just silence. So anyway.
Well, you guys are both really good speakers, and I've learned something over the years. The 1 or 2 second pause or 3 second pause while you collect your thoughts, rather than filling it with those kind of things, can really, really drastically change the message that you're delivering. And also just sitting there listening for a minute, like you said, 10 seconds. That's a long time. It really is. Especially when it's an uncomfortable silence. Like, do you still love me?
Will you marry me?
Yeah. Maybe it doesn't always work, but
she paused for 48 seconds.
Yeah. This isn't good.
Still waiting.
All right. So how do you stop overthinking?
Replace it with something else. It's the only way.
So
you can't stop overthinking.
So something else like what?
So it depends, right? And I like the I forget who you said, was it Dale Carnegie? Encourage the compartmentalization of thoughts, right? I think there is also something very, very helpful to label thoughts, right? Oh, that's a negative thought. Oh, that's a positive thought. Oh, that's a fun thought, whatever it is. And then also, like, for example, I'll just speak about my sleep issue, right? One of the things that you have these things called negative sleep thoughts, right? Which is, oh, I'm not going to sleep tonight. Oh,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
going to be up until 2 a.m. Oh, I'm going to feel terrible tomorrow. Those are all negative sleep thoughts. And one of the things that they train you to do is replace those with a positive sleep thought, which is, okay, well, maybe I don't sleep for 8 hours tonight, but maybe I'll get 4 hours and I'll still function tomorrow. Or, whatever it is, right? To kind of take the inverse of that and take that positive, that negative out of it and replace it with a positive, and then to focus on that positive. All of these things theoretically are much easier to think about as opposed to actually, incorporate in your life. If you are genuinely dealing with something hard and you've got a negative thought, it's much easier just to say, oh, we'll just replace it with a positive thought. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. Whereas, and it takes discipline, right? I mean, bring every thought into captivity, right? There is a discipline associated with that. Whereas the easy thing to do is just to let your mind run free,
Yeah.
Unchecked. And so, I don't know, whatever it is that your negative thought is, find what the inverse positive of that is.
Yeah.
And replace it with that. And I think that's more helpful than just changing the subject in your mind.
Yeah.
Because changing the subject in your mind leaves that thought unaddressed. It's just going to come back.
Right.
Right? It's just going to keep pestering you and reminding you that it's an unprocessed or unaddressed thought. And so you've got to acknowledge the thought, process the thought, turn it into a positive, and then focus on the positive. And then your mind's like, okay, I've dealt with this.
Right.
I've handled this.
Well, it's like the thing they say where you don't think about a pink elephant, and then
That's the first thing you think about.
you're going to start thinking about it.
So I just saw a couple of days ago, just a little blurb, a news story on TV that said that, whether it's scientists or whatever, but basically they said that there is no such thing as multitasking. It's a made up term. Our brains cannot multitask. It will focus on one thing in that moment, and that's what it can do. So yeah, I agree with what you said, Stephen, as far as, and what I've tried to do is, and I think I don't know, like again, for me, as I've gotten older, been through more, whatever that worry is in my mind at that moment, I try to say, okay, when did I have this worry in the past? When was the situation similar, right? Maybe I didn't need to close a sale to make my number, or there's a health thing going on, or whatever it is. And then bring back that memory of, okay, how did God help me in the past? In the same situation, what did God do?
Yeah.
Again, to deal with that negative thought, that worry that's in my mind, not just to be like, oh, I'm going to go, watch a movie. Because I know people are like, oh, I'll just go listen to music, watch movies, but it doesn't deal with that. As soon as that quiet space comes back in your mind, here comes that negative thought. So basically just educating myself of, hey, you've been here before. This is how God handled it. Like, just, give him control and chill out.
The brain likes to naturally solve problems. And if you have those thoughts, it feels like it has to solve the problem. And this is anxiety, right? Oh, I've got this thing, I've got to solve it. It devolves into this thing because your brain is trying to fix it.
Yeah.
And so if you can kind of put your brain at ease that, okay, there's no problem to fix here, or, okay, this is how we're going to process it and fix it, then your brain's like, oh, okay, well, I can move off to the next thing.
Yeah.
At least that's how my brain works, and I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that this is how people's brains do work, right?
Yeah.
Is we're always looking for something to solve.
Because that's the spiral, because we all, I think we probably all in our lives have maybe spiraled a little bit out of control, but we know people because they don't take the time to deal with that. And that's when the spiral, because it just keeps coming back, and no matter what they try, they can't get that thought out of their mind because they haven't dealt with it to, like you said, to solve it in your own mind and move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And this is where therapy, I think, for people does help, right? If there are people who are having these issues, a good therapist will help you do that. Will help you identify the thought, label the thought, process the thought, bring it to some sort of conclusion so that the next time it comes up, you can just replay the conclusion, just replay it. And that's just, what is that? It's plasticity. What's the first part of that?
You got me.
Neuroplasticity. That's exactly what it is, right? Is you're just kind of retraining your brain over and over and over. And a good therapist will help you get there, right? you've had a therapist that just wants to hear you talk,
Yeah.
but it's not
And-
actually
and
helping you.
And Christopher doesn't have time for that.
I think that is the case, and I guarantee you there are good therapists because I've read books by good therapists. Dr. Amon, I think is his name. He's not really a therapist necessarily, but he talks about the brain and just the changes and things that you can make. I think definitely there are people with that craft that could definitely help. For me personally, I'm more of I want to figure these things out myself. I'm going to read every book. I'm going to study and do as much as I can. But I think one of the things is fear shrinks when we stop obeying it. And I think that's a lot of times what the problem that we have is it becomes our master and we just let it control us so much. And it causes like paralysis. It paralyzes us. And I think being able to move past things, there are still going to be scary moments in life. There are still going to be presentations that you have to give that are really big and deals that you work on. Like, see, for me, it's like, I think this way, big deal or big presentation or something, and it doesn't go the way that it should, or I don't get the outcome that I wanted, which even in sports, if I lost a game, it was because I didn't do all that I could have, and I need to do more. And then I put unrealistic pressure. Whereas if you think about it, if you're competing for a large deal and you've got 3 vendors that are competing, why are you any better than any other vendor? I mean, maybe you are, maybe you're the greatest, but things happen. People are more comfortable with this solution or that solution and this person or that person. And for me, a lot of things I take personally, and I can't detach from the emotion that I attach to a particular situation or an interaction with a person. And so if I have a discussion with you and you don't see things the way I do, it must mean you think I'm an idiot. It can't be that, you just got a difference of opinion and
Right.
it's okay.
Just look at it differently.
Yes. It goes back to what you said about counselors and therapists. Just because I've had 1 or 2 bad experiences, because I really have only been to a therapist twice in my life, that doesn't mean that all therapists are bad. That's like a woman or a man saying, I was married, I got divorced, all women are bad, all men are bad. No, that's not the case. In this particular instance, you may have been in a bad relationship. So I think we got to think about things like that. So at night, how do you, especially you thinking about your insomnia, how do you quiet the mind then? What are some things you do?
So there's a couple of things. The first is just mindfulness, right? Just being aware of just the physical senses, right? Just enjoy the moment, right? Think through the moment. That's an easy one. But I think the other thing is, there's a couple of things, but the other thing is also just if you're feeling anxious, the one thing, and it's actually the worst thing that people can do, is to try and push it out.
Yeah.
So if you're having like a beating heart or shortness of breath or whatever those things are, right, the worst thing you could actually do is try and push it, because the more you fight it, the more it's going to come back.
Yeah.
And so just acknowledge it. Like, hey, I'm feeling this right now. Make room for it. Say, hey, I'm just gonna feel this. Just gonna allow this to happen. Feel it. And the next thing you know, your nervous system realizes, oh, this actually isn't a threat, right? So it kind of, because that's all that's happening, is your nervous system is playing up. And so the first thing is just make room for it. Label it. Be mindful. But then also, and I think we said this earlier. I'm not sure if this was just before we started, but is to memorize scripture or songs, right? I mean, I've been trying to go through just the book of Psalms, right? And just there's so much there where you can just kind of go through and just memorize those things. But you have to do the other things first, right? You can't just change the subject from, oh, I'm feeling anxious, to me go and go through my memorization.
Yeah.
You have to go through those steps first, right? Because if you just try and change the subject, you're not addressing what your nervous system thinks is a problem. So you got to acknowledge your nervous system first. Let it know that, hey, you hear it. Thank you, right? Thanks for trying to protect me. okay, now I'm letting you know there's no threat here. I'm going to transition off to something else.
Yeah.
And again, you have to make that transition. You can't just go from one to the other. At least I'm not a psychologist, but this is
Sure.
the prevailing thought. And that's how I do it.
What about you?
Well, mine's a little different because my worry and stress usually builds as the day goes on, depending on, how the meetings have went, what emails I've gotten. But I'm a very routine oriented person. So, I have to get my workout in. My day's done. I need a workout, and to help kind of just clear the mind a little bit and kind of get better focus.
So you do that at the end of the day.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm not except Sunday morning runs. I always get that in. But no, my normal life routine is the evening workout, usually before dinner. Then have dinner, which is nice. Before bed, just watch something stupid on TV, just again to kind of clear the mind. And then just, Betsy always, and there's truth to it. She goes, you don't ever have just quiet time. She's like, you always have something on in the car. She's like, do you ever just sit in the car with nothing on? I'm like, no. Like, the music, podcast, there's always something on. But night, whenever, everyone's in bed, that's the quiet time. And so a lot of times that'll just be the time where, if you want to call it meditation, prayer, whatever you want to call it. But when I'm just like, I feel like it's me and God, and there's nothing else out there. And I can just kind of go through the day and go through, I'm worried about this, but, I know you've helped me before, and I'm sure you will, but, just, help me get through this. So that's my routine. I mean, it's pretty constant because I'm a creature of routine. But yeah, that's at the end, I guess to answer your question, I get myself to the end of the day when I do have quiet time, when there's nothing else going on, and I can just be with my thoughts and go to God with those.
But that's great, but that's somewhat different from actually having anxiety or having an issue and dealing with it in the moment, right? That's your way of helping keep yourself level.
Yeah.
Keeping yourself in a calm mindset. Is that accurate?
No, I would agree. And like I said, I think through my life, there's been a couple of times in my life when I would say, okay, I had some sort of anxiety attack. One's been pretty recent, but typically I just worry.
Yeah.
Like I said, my mind will just go to, okay, I didn't get the deal today like I thought, which means I'm never going to get it, which means they're going to fire me, which means, we're going to have to sell the house. I mean, that's...
I'm living in a tent.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then again, if I can go through my routine, by the end of the day, I'm like, oh, it's not that horrible. But then there's times, well, like I said, we all have those, but as those days stack on each other, you become short with the kids, short with your wife. Then there's all those problems you have to deal with. There's been plenty of times when Betsy's like, you need to go to the gym. Like, leave the house and go do something, but leave here.
Yeah.
Go do it somewhere else.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, so, and again, everyone's different, right?
Yeah,
sure.
Because, I've been fortunate that I don't think that I've had, until I guess more recently in my life, and they've just been more isolated, where mine's much more of just a worrying about things versus I haven't been kind of crippled or paralyzed in a moment of like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever done any writing? Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I journal a lot.
Do you? Mm-hmm. I imagine that helps, eh?
Yeah, it does. And then you go back too. And do you guys write goals down? I mean, like, I'm pretty detailed. I probably got
Shaka.
40, 50 details written down, goals where I go back and look. And, and I thought it was funny, not funny like, ha, 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 but Victoria and I, we bought the kids all goals books, and we were like, each one of you needs to write. Victoria had like 3 things. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you need
7 pages.
I got like 50 things. And then I take those 50 goals and then I break them into what I want to do in 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years. And then I rewrite them often because things change.
Of course.
My plans change or whatever. She's like, well, I don't think that's a goal or something. And I was like, I had everything written down, like go to New Zealand, buy Victoria this, build a house, whatever, different things. But I try to put those kind of things together, and it helps. But journaling definitely helps me. And then I go back and read it and kind of see my state of mind at the time. I think journaling is very, very critical. And I think it's becoming a lost art because everybody tries to do things
I
on
agree.
their phones and stuff like that. I have a notebook. It's in my backpack. I carry it with me everywhere I go. I used to have even just a little leather bound book that I would carry in my pocket. I have a mini pencil. So if something comes up or I think about something. So it's good.
I agree on the journaling. I mean, if there's ever anything that I'm really trying to process mentally,
Yeah.
the first thing I'll do is I'll just get a blank piece of paper and just write out, even in a disorganized, chaotic fashion, just whatever comes to mind. I'll just write. Just get it out there, and 100% of the time, at the end of that exercise, feel much better about it.
Well, it cracks me up because like I had a huge presentation and it was due the next day. Hadn't even started it. And Victoria always tells me, do an outline. She came, I was like in my office, had my head on my desk, and she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I cannot think of how to put this together. She's like, did you do? And I'm like, don't even say it. I didn't do the stupid outline yet. She's like, just do it. Just write down some things. So I was like, fine. I started writing down some things. I'm not kidding you. 20 minutes later, I go talk to her and I'm like, man, it worked.
Yeah.
Like things just started flowing and I told you.
Is that how you guys write sermons? You start with an outline, or what's your method?
I just kind of come up with an idea and then
develop it into
just develop it into it. Like I'll think of something. I'll hear one of you guys saying something at church, and I'll be like, I'm going to expand on that.
That's genius, whatever Stephen said.
Yes.
I have to write that down.
No, I don't think I've ever said that, actually.
No, also not shocking. What about you? Do you like an outline?
I'm an outline.
Yeah. Me too.
That's what I
need
and that's as far as I go. Like
Yeah.
I'll outline it and then I'll kind of fill in verses that depending on what I need.
Yeah.
And usually don't go any farther than an outline, but yeah, definitely.
I'll put little things in my notes that just say, what's really bad is when I type it up and then I'm like, tell that story from 2 years ago or whatever. And then I'll go back to give that sermon again later or something. I'll be like,
You're like, I don't know what story that was.
What story that was?
Yeah.
I was doing that yesterday, like trying to prepare like a feast message, and I went through one of my old messages, and I'll have like little comments. There was one like, I don't know what I meant by this. Like I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Wait, so coming back to yours. So yours is just an outline
Yes.
at the time you deliver it.
Uh-huh.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So I have more than that, but like my method of preparing something is idea, outline, fill in the gaps.
And I mean, it's a full outline, Roman numeral 1, A, 1, 2, 3, B. I mean, it's a full outline, but it's thoughts and not sentences.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I kind of mix it up. I'm like for a sermon, I may have 4, 5, 6 pages of notes that are just like, in a word here and there. And it's just things to trigger my thoughts and all of that. Yeah. But it kind of varies for me. Well, I think kind of wrapping this up, thinking about the things you can do. I bundle fear, worry, anxiety. I bundle them all up. It's just one big thing. And anxiety could be something, I mean, I don't know. Like when I'm really anxious, I just say it's anxiety. It could just be when I'm really worrying, I feel it in my chest. I get that tightness in my stomach and I feel awful.
It's the worst feeling.
Yeah. Sometimes what helps is to just take a step back and just calm down and breathe. Maybe go read something, maybe go for a walk, maybe go for a run, maybe, just do something to get your mind off of it. And you can think about the worst possible outcomes, and maybe sometimes they do that, it does happen, and I get it, and it's tough. But I think the more that you have faith and you breathe through the moments, you journal, you just take a step back, kind of calm yourself down. I just think it's a much better way to live, because I don't think God did not intend us to live a life of fear. And, if people listening to this, if there's things that you're you're afraid to try, faith doesn't mean that fear goes away. It just means you just push on and you do things because you're just going to do it. And whatever happens, happens. Because like I said earlier, you can not try and you won't accomplish anything, or you can try and you may or may not accomplish something, but at least you've tried. And I think it was, oh man, who invented the light bulb? Thomas Edison. He had 10,000 different projects, 10,000 different efforts, and he finally invented it. He didn't fail. He said, I mean, yeah, I guess you could say I failed 10,000 times, but finally got it right. So just didn't stop. So any final comments, thoughts?
No, it was a good talk today.
Big topic, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. The key is just don't let it stop you, right?
Yep.
I mean, with everything, it's like, no matter what kind of day you had, start the next day, get out of bed, and take another step forward.
Yep.
I mean, that's the key in all this.
Yep, absolutely.
Just face it. Go through it.
Yep, go through
Just figure out what it is that's holding you back and run it. Just like David,
it. Yeah.
right? One of my favorite parts about that story, there's a lot that I love about it, is that he ran at Goliath.
Yeah.
And I feel like that needs to be our mentality with our fears.
Yep.
Is we need to run at them, not away from them.
Yeah.
And they'll disappear most of the time.
Yeah. Probably 95% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Matthew.
So when our husbands were sitting here just minutes earlier, they were discussing anxiety and realized that it affects families and, those around them. So they wanted our take on how it affects everyone. So what do you guys like? How do you see that come out in your marriage with when your husband deals with anxiety?
Let me think about that. Because for our marriage, because this is something we've actually been dealing with recently for Christopher, and he has been very anxious lately, and we've been trying to work through it and pinpoint it. I think that it's interesting because as a man, he wants to always appear very strong, and he carries a lot of weight, so he doesn't want to admit that he's anxious. He even had a hard time saying, "Hey, I need to talk to you about it." And I feel like, well, I'm the one person who should be your safe space, who you can tell anything to, and you can always tell me anything. And he was worried that I would think he looked weak, and I would never think that, ever. And so I think it's important to remember, even when you have people who are very high functioning, who I think, we all are, and do well in this world and navigating life, that even they can feel that they need to hide, or that they need to always appear strong, or even that they're just putting up a wall or a front, which isn't necessarily accurate at all. And I do think there are ways you can tell. You need to be maybe a little bit intuitive, but we've been married for 25 years, and sometimes it goes over my head and I don't realize it, So I guess it's just important to be there for them and to know that they can say whatever they need to say. I think the important thing about anxiety is that it's a fine line, like we were saying earlier. Do we just suck it up and get over it and move on and deal? Or do we talk about it? Or how much do we baby ourselves or baby our spouses? Or, how much do we talk about it? And how much do we say, okay, well, I need to just get over this and not deal with anything at all?
That's true. So true.
I think you said something important too. Even though we've been married for 30 years and I don't always know, unless he says something, I may not recognize it. And then I feel bad that I didn't pick up on that. But a lot of times if he is really stressed or worried about something, he will be kind of grumpy and snappy, and so, kind of short, when he's talking about something. And so I probably need to do a better job of picking up on that. But I'm always like, you just need to go run or go to the gym.
It's very true. Yeah, 100%. I think for all of us, we all need to do that.
Yeah,
because get out there, get physical, get exercise.
That gives you a boost,
yeah.
And I think, just in general, this whole topic, it is hard when you're specifically stressed about something, like a specific event or something going on, but to just kind of ground yourself and come back to what am I grateful for? What do I have, in my life, and focusing on all those positives, that's just always a place to go to, to try draw from. You know, we were talking about just get over it and move on, but like that is something to grab hold of, you know, let me look at all those blessings and everything I can be grateful for, because that can put you in a better space, you know.
That reminds me of what we were speaking about earlier with our son, where we said, okay, what's the truth? What's the real thing? Like your brain is telling you things that aren't true. That's making you spiral out of control. And most of the time, our anxiety, the things we worry about, I think it's like 90% of the time, it's nothing that ever even happens. So you need to take a step back and think, okay, what is the truth of this situation? What are the facts? What's really actually happening? And am I even worrying about things that are even real?
Right.
Because most of the time we're not even worrying about things that are real or that are going to happen. And especially as, I don't know if it's a more female thing, probably not. It's probably everybody, but you worry about all the things that don't even happen. And, you know, I lay in bed at night and worry about things that aren't even true and aren't even real, and they're not going to happen.
Right.
And I think maybe part of that, there's something called like preemptive worrying, because you think if you worry about it beforehand, you can figure everything out, and then it's not actually going to bother you. Yeah, exactly. Like you think you figured it out so that if it happens, you're fine. But it's not going to happen.
I read that's a female trait too. Is like with your kids, you think of everything. Okay, this could fall on them. You see this, they could drown there, they could fall into this, and you're just ready and on alert all the time. That then it's exhausting because, like you said, it doesn't really happen. I think one thing you both brought up that was really interesting was like just being there for your husband, whether it's being aware of it. And Steve and I kind of dealt with that too, is like he gets angry and then I'm mad at him because he's mad and then I don't know why. So I think just being that safe space so that you're a team when you're going through whatever it is, versus then you have like the anxiety of the world and then now you're battling each other because you're like, why are you in such a bad mood? So yeah, I think, have you heard that there's a story, I can't remember, it's about the two wolves. Did you ever hear that?
Is it? It sounds very familiar.
And it's like there's two wolves, one that's full of like depression and anxiety, and the other one is gratefulness and like just the two opposing attributes. And then they're like, well, which one wins when they're battling? And it's like the one that you feed. And that's kind of what you said, like always being grateful and thinking about like, okay, well, instead of what's the worst outcome that could happen, what's the best outcome that could happen, and kind of repositioning your thoughts.
Thinking in the positive. And also we talk about this too, thinking about the future, is instead of saying when this happens, if it's something positive, say, well, not if it happens, but say when it happens. Like that. And you can do that instead of with your worries, you know, just reverse it into something positive always, and trying to always remain in the positive headspace, because it steals your joy. It takes away from your life. It's not worth it to be anxious and worried all the time. And you're not living in the moment either. And you're losing so many precious things that could be happening right then, like with your family and time and just your energy and your creativity. And like you said, for the wolves, like which one are you feeding? And what if you're putting all your energy into this and you can't be putting your energy into positive and creativity? And think about all the other things you could be accomplishing instead of worry and anxiety.
And I think that's why you see people who are always negative, and then you have positive people, and it's like you've kind of trained your brain how to what you see in the same situation. Two people can see two different situations, and it's the same setting.
Well, and there's more research now too showing that when you do have those negative thoughts, you are deepening those pathways in your brain. Like there's more and more, you know, just in the last few years. And that's something I've talked about with our kids. Like if you stay negative, like you are just deepening those paths where that is where your brain is going to go. Like you have to make a conscious decision to not strengthen that, because otherwise you're just going to stay that way, you know, and you have to work on those positive paths, you know, instead.
Yeah, it's true. And you can rewire it.
Yeah.
Do you guys think you handle anxiety with your spouse different than you do when your kids are experiencing it?
No. I think well, do you mean like if my kids are anxious?
Yeah.
Or no, well, like with the kids, I want to fix everything. Of course, you always want to jump in and fix everything. And I'm way too much of a micromanager for that. Like I have a very difficult time letting them do what they need to do. I have a really hard time letting them fail. And then you unfortunately like reap the negative rewards of that when they're adults who can't do things for themselves, you know? And so I really, really try hard to step back. My parents were a great example of not ever giving their opinion on things and not ever butting in. And so I try really, really hard to do that. And I think probably my older kids who will see this and hear this probably don't realize that I stay up at all night long worrying about them still, even though they're adults. But then I think, when it comes to Chris being anxious, I probably tell him more just to stop, suck it up. You're fine. Everything's going to be fine.
You make
We'll
me
be
feel
fine.
better because since I do that too.
Yeah.
Well, and I think with the kids, they are more open in telling me when they are experiencing something and having anxiety about something. So it's easier to talk to them about it because they're more upfront with, wanting to discuss it. Whereas Matthew, he doesn't do that all the time. So
I agree. I think we fostered a good environment of, like, one thing Chris and I always tried to tell our kids was that if you talk to us about it, we can fix it. Like, if we all have a conversation about something, we can fix it together. There's nothing that you guys haven't done or haven't faced that we haven't faced. So if you just get the words out, and it may be difficult, if we can talk about it, we can fix it. And so rather than hiding something, because then things fester and then you get even more anxious. And then you've got this big ball of emotion and things that you're hiding in your chest and you don't want to tell your parents, and it's awful. And it just gets worse and worse. And then you feel even more terrible and more anxious and it grows. But if you can just tell us and we can talk about it, we can fix it. And I think they actually listened.
that's good.
Do you think there's how do you tell the difference between a healthy fear and an unhealthy fear? Because your body kind of reacts the same way.
It's very true. And your body reacts the same way. And unfortunately, that affects our health a lot. And your body doesn't know the difference between, like, when people talk about now, fight and flight, and your body doesn't know the difference between a predator coming at you in, prehistoric times and our day-to-day anxiety and worries that aren't really real. And so that's a really difficult thing for people to overcome.
But this younger generation now, this self-care and taking care the time and taking care of themselves is so different than what we grew up with. So I think there's a healthy balance between the two. Like, you do sometimes have to power through, get over fears, do things that are uncomfortable, and that's how you grow. But then also sometimes you have to take time to make sure that you're healing.
But I think you can heal in a positive way and not a wallowing way.
Yeah.
You can take care of yourself by eating right, exercising, getting sunshine, getting out there. It doesn't always have to be listening to depressing music in your room in the dark. It probably shouldn't be that.
And we've talked about that too, about what you said, wallow. Like, you can't stay there. Like, you have to make that decision to not stay there. And that's hard, but I think just trying to be encouraging. And I know, like, our daughter, she recently was just so stressed about a test and, like, I'm going to fail. I'm going to do awful. It's going to be the worst, and she just had herself all worked up. And I'm like, okay, you have studied a lot and this, like, and all you can do is the best you can do. Like, just talking to her, like, by the time we were done with the conversation, she was still worried, but she was, like, off the ledge, and so, I mean, sometimes even when things are kind of irrational, but they're really upset, it's just taking that time to be there and to talk through it. And, sometimes just them being able, like you said, being able to get it out and get it, out in the open, just that's enough to kind of to just help, obviously different situations, there might be something more stressful than just a test, but you know what I'm saying? Just for them to be able to discuss it with you is a help in and of itself sometimes.
It reminds me, we talk a lot of, in scripture, I think Chris might need to help me about, David was, praying and very upset, and he was worried about his child dying. And then he prayed and gave himself, I don't know if it says 24 hours or something like that. And then he was like, okay, I dust myself off. I'm going to move on. So, like, you can wallow a little, but make sure you dust yourself off and move on. And, sure, we're all entitled to our emotions and sadness and maybe a little bit of self-pity. Yes. But then you got to, dust it off and move on.
And I think that's the difference, is acknowledging it, being there, and being like, now I'm moving on. Like, I think we were talking about this earlier with your daughter, just how, she's still living and kind of, like, that's a great characteristic too, to be able to just keep moving on.
Right. Yeah. She's had a lot of health issues, and that's hard to deal with, and brings its own stress and anxiety along with that. And so, yeah, that's been challenging, just, because you want to be an encourager and, try to help her to continue to move forward. And yeah, that can be hard, but yeah.
And that's where what's great is, like, how does your faith come into play? We all have that
Right.
extra relationship that.
Right. And that, again, is like leaning on God through any kind of stress or anxiety is obviously the first go-to, because praying about it and asking for him to give you strength to actually see the truth of whatever matter it is that you're worried about, that's huge. And that's a gigantic blessing when you are relying on God, because life is hard to figure out on your own. Like, so definitely that's a major part of getting through stressful situations.
How about with you?
I agree, because without it, I honestly don't know how people do it. I don't know how people even have successful marriages without it, or relationships without some sort of a guide, because this world it's pretty crazy and things come at you all the time, and you really need something to hold fast to as well. And it's a comfort, just having the guidelines and a framework, and then also looking for things that show you, okay, this is the right path, because I think God often, when you have big decisions or things that you think, is it the right way? Am I doing the right thing? I think doors open and things are shown, and it may be the tiniest little thing, or it may even be something not happening that shows you. But I think if you really look for it, it's there to see and to give you comfort in that you're doing the right thing, and that he is watching and you are doing, going on the right path. And I don't think he's going to let you get too far off.
And that helps me with my anxiety, because I'm super type A personality. I like to control everything. I have plans. I know what time I'm starting this and when I'm doing this. And then when I lose that control, or with the kids, I can't protect them 100% of the time. Or, there's certain things that are out of our control, just saying a prayer and be like, okay, you got it. You're better than I am. And I can now just relax about it. And whatever happens is going to happen. And I know that there's at least someone in control. It may not be me.
It's tough. It's difficult. But.
Yeah, knowing that God's got it, like, that is a huge weight off, right? To know that at the end of the day, like, he's got it all under control, and we don't have to carry that.
Yeah.
It's hard to admit that you don't have to know everything.
Yes.
Somebody else knows, and that's okay.
But it's nice to have that permission to not have to know everything. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope everyone's now de-stressed now that it's over.
Thank you for joining us today. Really enjoyed Matthew and Stephen being a part of the conversation as always. I also especially appreciated the perspectives our wives brought as well. We're looking forward to many more episodes ahead. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next month on Karpos Life.